going back to dealing with more trains, aren't we? Because a couple of you, Angel Brock, have just won't leave me alone about the trains, will you? But who am I kidding? You guys watch the videos for it, so I'm gonna keep doing it for you. This time it's engines of Amtrak GE60. It's like a quarter to midnight. I figured, why not just go ahead and get this over with? So let's do it.
Hey everybody, Amtrak Guy 365 here, and we start out with the Black Mesa and Lake Powell Railroad, or BM and LP.
Whoa! First it sounded like he was talking behind me. That's what it felt like. Second of all, did he just cut off his introduction? Like, what?
Hey everybody, Amtrak Guy 365 here, and
yeah.
We start out with the Black Mesa and Lake Powell Railroad, or BM and LP for short. The BM and LP was organized in 1970 and opened in 1973 to deliver coal from the Black Mesa mine in Kayenta, Arizona to the Navajo Generating Station power plant in Page, Arizona. The line covered a distance of 78 miles and was completely isolated from the National Railroad network in the rest of the United States. The line was electrified at 50 kilovolts with 60 Hz AC and was the first electrification system in the world to do so. The railroad was intended to be operated like a conveyor belt, cycling trains to and from the coal mine and power plant.
Can you get any louder?
General Electric responded to the BM and LP's locomotive needs with the E60C, a 6-axle locomotive designed for heavy coal loads.
That's
the BM and LP ordered 6 locomotives between 1972 and 1976. Trains were run with 3 locomotives each, allowing for 2 trains to operate at once on the line. The BM and LP would later acquire 6 former National Railways of Mexico E60C-2s after electric operations on the latter railroad were discontinued in the late 1990s. The E60C was capable of 72 miles an hour, but operation on the BM and LP was restricted to 35 miles an hour. The E60C weighs in at 426,000 pounds with 100,000 pounds of ballast. The locomotive's length is 63 feet 2 inches and is rated at 6,000 horsepower. Meanwhile, in the northeastern U.S., electrification continued on Amtrak's northeast corridor. Amtrak was using Bud Metroliner EMUs and former Pennsylvania Railroad GG1s, which were then handed over to the Penn Central to power trains along the corridor, but age had well caught up to the engines as they were over 30 years old and restricted to 85 miles an hour. Amtrak saw a replacement, but there wasn't a single electric passenger locomotive offered by American locomotive manufacturers at the time. Purchasing and converting a European locomotive for use on the Northeast Corridor was avoided, as it would take 3 years for the whole process to be completed. Amtrak then looked to GE and their E60Cs for an adaptation to passenger service. In 1973, Amtrak ordered 26 E60s at a cost of $18.4 million. 15 locomotives were originally intended to be fitted with steam generators for older passenger equipment, and 11 with newer head-end power, or HEP. However, during the acquisition of the E60, Amtrak was able to expedite the arrival of their then-new Amfleet passenger cars, so 9 of the first set were fitted with head-end power. E60s with steam generators were designated as an E60CP, while the units with HEP were E60CHs. However, when looked back at today, E60 is the term used for all Amtrak variations for simplicity. Amtrak figured the E60 could easily displace the GG1s and render the mechanically unreliable Metroliners obsolete. Amtrak's order of E60s began to arrive in November of 1974 and were the first to feature the Phase 2 paint scheme. The E60 derives its name from the E, standing for electric, and the 60, standing for 6,000 horsepower. The Amtrak E60s differed from its E60C counterpart in ways that it had a top speed of 120 miles an hour, weighs 387,000 pounds as opposed to the 420,000 pounds of the latter locomotive, and the Amtrak E60s had a length of 71 feet 3 inches. The Amtrak E60s also featured a dual cab, one on each end, similar to many European locomotives. The E60 was equipped with a unique Nathan P01235 air horn at the suggestion of Don Teed. Here are a few samples. Amtrak used the
Is it
E60s
over?
primarily on trains to and from New York City, such as the Clocker, Three Rivers, and the E60s were also used on mail trains and even circus trains. However, as Amtrak began running the locomotives more often, problems arose. The E60 swayed left and right when accelerating, which put stress on the rails and later could cause derailments. One derailment on February 24, 1975, during a test trip, revealed the six-axle freight-style trucks were a contributing factor to the problems that plagued the E60.
What?
The locomotive's excessive weight also contributed to the leaning and jostling movements when at speeds of excess of 100 miles an hour. The derailment investigation then brought the Federal Railroad Administration to the decision to limit the E60's top speed to 90 miles an hour.
What?
However, Amtrak wasn't going to give up just yet. In 1976, they publicly stated they would begin efforts to get the E60s up to 110 miles an hour, while in the meantime, a four-axle Swedish locomotive known as the RC4 would be given a trial run. Amtrak was happy with the test runs and decided to design a locomotive based on the RC4. The efforts to improve the E60 were not going well. The following year, Amtrak had already developed its specifications for a new electric locomotive that would be built by Electromotive Division, or EMD. This dual-cab electric would become the AEM-7.
It would become a toaster?
The E60s
that's
would
so
continue
awesome.
to run alongside their AEM-7 replacement as they entered service in 1980. Amtrak then began to dispose of their E60s as the AEM-7 proved much more reliable. Amtrak sold two E60 CHs to the Navajo Mine Railroad in 1982, and 10 were sold to New Jersey Transit in 1984. From 1986 to 1988, the E60s still rostered on Amtrak were given a complete overhaul, being rebuilt, reclassified, renumbered, and repainted in Amtrak's notable Phase 3 paint scheme. The E60 CPs had their steam generators removed in favor of head-end power, while the HEP-equipped E60 CHs and E60 CPs were rebuilt and given the classification of E60 MA, where the MA stood for Motor Alternative. After the improvement project was completed, the new E60s weighed 11 less tons, allowing for more efficient operations. The E60 MAs were rated for 90 miles an hour and used on heavier long-distance trains such as the Silver Service, Crescent, and Montrealer. The E60s could also be seen on push-pull services on the Keystone service trains during the late 1980s. Despite being more efficient than before, the E60s were still more suitable for heavier freight trains than passenger trains. In 1990, New Jersey Transit began purchasing ABB ALP-44 locomotives. These were improved AEM-7s built by ASEA Brown Boveri. In 1998, NJT had the E60 removed from their roster, and number 958 was preserved at the United Railroad Historical Society of New Jersey. The E60s continued running into the 21st century until 2003, when all E60s were retired from Amtrak's roster. The remainder that weren't sold to other railroads were scrapped. However, Amtrak E60 number 603 was acquired by the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg during April of 2004 for preservation and currently sits on display collecting rust.
Rusted dust.
The E60s nearly faced a similar fate to the failed SDP-40X, but were able to redeem themselves to some extent towards the end of their 30-year career. The E60s were able to retire off Amtrak's roster on a good note and will always be a part of the history book of Amtrak, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation.
Not sponsored, by the way.
Thanks for watching. Thank you to all the following people and sources for providing information, photos, and videos for the production of this video. I will be progressing further into the history of Amtrak's motive power next time when I discuss the Bud Metroliner. Stay tuned, and thank you again for watching.
Yeah. So, there you go, guys. Like you wanted, the episode 3 of the Engines of Amtrak, the Eggman Robot number 60. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope the rest of you that watched this video enjoyed it. I'm going to bed now.